We can see you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Quick introductions so that we can start this. This webinar. I'll be calling out the
So this is Linda. I'm sorry. And also at Pearls and Treasures. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Mr. Henry Moniki. I don't know if he's in a position to speak. Maybe you can move on to Lizanne Mwendwa.
Hi everyone, my name is Lizanne Mwendo. I work in the Secretariat at KCPF as the Communications and Media Person.
Thank you for the introduction. Mr. Mokua Vincent, you're next.
Hi everyone, my name is Moko Vincent. Yes, and I'm a member of the Life Committee. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. We have Natalia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalia. I'm currently an intern at KCPF.
Thank you, Natalia. We have Naomi Chepkemoi.
Good afternoon. My name is Naomi, and I work at KCPF.
Thank you, Naomi. Next is Mr. Nyingi Wahome.
Hi everyone. My Nyingi Wahome. I'm happy to be here with the Life Committee.
Thank you for the introduction. Say hi, please.
Student.
Thank you for joining. Okay, maybe Ross is not in a position to speak. We have Mr. Ufasa. Is it Mr. or Miss? I don't know. Ufasa. Such a unique name.
Yo, what you saying?
Yes, hi.
Yo, my name's Ufasa. I work at Tesco's. I love my life.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining. So I think we'll put a pause on the introductions. I see more people are joining in, but maybe we'll just engage later with them. So thank you everyone for joining. As the poster read, I don't know if all of us saw the poster. Today we are here for the Dignity of Life webinar. And I know this is just one of the activities leading up to the March for Life. That is the major flagship event for life. That will be on 23rd of this month, and the Life Symposium on 20th. So leading up to those two activities, we've come up maybe with this online webinars just to shed more light on why we are doing maybe the Life March and the Life Symposium, where we are advocating for the protection and promotion of life. So today's webinar majorly will be shedding light on the threats to life with major focus on three things. That is abortion, which we all know is one of the threats to life. We have access to healthcare services, and the last item on the agenda for addressing today is violence. Yeah. So in addressing this, we have various panelists who I'll be introducing in a few. Will be helping us in getting panelist is none other than Mr. Nyingi Wahome. Karibu sana. We have Mr. Richard Kaketo. We have Georgina and Linda will be helping us in guiding the discussion. So welcome on board, everyone. Please be active. Let's keep the chats going. We can type in the chats, just maybe raising a few questions which we'll be answering in this discussion. And I'll ask the panelists, as you address the question, I've been requested that we turn on our cameras as you address the question. Yeah, your first is waving at us. We appreciate. We are glad to see you. So I have a few guiding questions which will help guide the discussion. And the first question will be going to Mr. Nyingi Wahome. This is maybe a primary question which we should answer. The question is, why should we be passionate about pro-life campaign? Why should we be passionate about pro-life campaign?
Okay.
Maybe in a minute or less.
All right. So I think I wasn't expecting to go first, but when we talk about pro-life, when we talk about defending life and the dignity of life, what we're saying is There's those who are that we all have the right to life. We all have our inherent dignity that gives us the right to life. Okay, if we were to ask ourselves a bunch of questions, like if you were to murder someone, have you done something wrong? The answer would be yes. If that person had a genetic disease, for example, let's say they had Down syndrome, would that change it? Would that make it any better? The answer is no. It's still murder. Okay, so the job of us who are less vulnerable is to protect those who are more vulnerable. Okay, so there's those who can't defend themselves. The duty of us who have the capacity to protect others, we're supposed to protect others. Okay? So the dignity that we have is universal. It's not there's no it's not that one person has more than the other. Again, it's inherent. It's not something that we bought with money or we gained through prestige or we were born into the right family, so we have blue blood. So the reason why we should be passionate about the pro-life campaign or movement is that we need to see ourselves in those who are being threatened, right? We were once, for example, in the case of abortion, we were once unborn children. You know? We were vulnerable and we needed our society to take care of us, right? Now there's others who are in that position, and it's our duty to take care of them and to make sure that they have the fulfillment in life that we've had, right? So I think that would be my answer to why we need to be passionate about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the response. What I've picked is life is an inherent right, and we have a duty to protect the vulnerable. So the rest of the members who are with us, please, you can be typing in the chat so as to keep the communication active. Thank you, Wahome. Yeah, you can type your reactions. Next question. And if you also have a question, the next question, this will go to Madam Linda. And this is the emotional and psychological abortion. We know the mental health discussions have been rampant these days. So the question is, how do you address the medical needs of individuals who have undergone abortions regardless of their circumstances or reasons? How do you address the emotional and psychological needs of individuals who have undergone regardless of their circumstances or reasons? To me,
Oh, okay. The problem with doing something secretly of cells, your soul knows that you killed. And so, how do the individual talk about the process, the time with the reality of what through crisis. And when you think about it, sometimes even suicide, basically all that is just because someone did a secure and important place so that they can now heal emotionally and psychologically from what they've gone through. Yes.
But now maybe a follow-up question just on the same. Of course, you've said a safe space where we don't judge these people, but is that in any way validation for their actions? Still to you, Linda.
Well, it is not a validation for their actions, but without them realizing or being in a position where they're able to come to terms with their actions, then you're likely to have even more abortions happening. Okay, and it comes from a place of none of us is perfect, because the people who have come from very different journeys. Some have come from addiction, some have come from pornography, some have come from abortion and many other vices. But the human life is not defined by a mistake. It's not defined by a lack of judgment at some point in your life. We serve a God who is all about redeeming. He's a redemption God, the whole world was redeemed by him. And so because he has that same heart of redemption, then he seeks that these people walk in the purpose that they have been set forth rather than walking in condemnation by the enemy. So we serve a God who is all about, we serve a God, I don't know what's happening.
It is Mr. Yufasa.
I think there's some, okay. So we serve a God who is all about forgiveness, redemption. Let me heal you. Let me help you walk in your purpose that you may help others to heal as well. And so when we talk about punishment, that maybe this thing will not serve as a deterrent, then we're taking in the place of God and saying, you're wrong, you deserve to be punished. And if that was the case, then all of us are wrong and we deserve to be punished, because according to God, sin is sin. Yeah. So let us heal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I've seen a concern. I don't know who Mr. Yufasa is. So I request the admin to check on that. So thank you, Linda, for the answer. The rest of the members, as I had said earlier, you can be typing in the chats just to keep the conversation going. If you have your reflections on the same or follow-up questions, I'll be looking at them and maybe they'll be addressed later on. Yeah, thank you. Now to Mr. Aketo. I've said today we've highlighted 3 threats to life, but you being the convener for Life Committee at KCPF for I don't know how long, maybe you can tell us what are the other threats to life apart from the 3 we've highlighted today.
Okay. The question of life is quite broad. The male sperm and the female ovum are alive. But we begin talking about a threat to life, they have fused. Okay. So while abortion might be this chemical process or manual process of ejecting the unborn child, is chemical abortions. We have P2 that targets the in the formation stages. But we have several other threats to life. When the child is born, the violence in the homes, the accidents on the road, and stuff like that. We as pro-life, we talk of protecting and promoting life from conception to natural death, because we are aware that there are forms of killings that are hidden or considered tolerable. Like these days you hear of euthanasia, others call it mercy killing, euthanasia, the Greek word you is happy killing. So someone is choosing to end the life to save you from suffering. We also have capital punishment. We have the law would require that an offender away from the society could be put away completely. Okay, all these are threats to life. Then in the area of surrogacy and the in vitro fertilization, all these there's a lot of death that goes on there that is really because the principle there is we super ovulate the woman, we get the men to masturbate, and then we get these babies in a petri dish, choose who will be implanted and who will not be implanted. And when those are implanted, we determine whether remaining eggs are to be killed or they are to be frozen and deployed for research. So all these are life in that sense. I hope I've run over a few of the threats to life that we think about as pro-lifers, from conception to natural death. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think that is insightful. I think if for the rest of the threats to life, I know KCPF have a state of life, family, and faith report. So if the rest of the members get time, you can go through that report and you'll get more insight into these threats to life and what we are doing to advocate for promotion and protection of life. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kakito. We move on to our next panelist. We haven't heard from her, but now this question is one of personal experience. We know she's been at the front line advocating for life using some social work. So Georgina, this is a question to you. From your frontline experience, that's how the question is framed. How do that is the issue of abortion. How does this issue of abortion manifest in the lives of individuals and communities?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. To address on that is, first of all, I think not everyone, and I don't believe most of these people do will to abort. There is something that might really be pushing them. So from the experience, because we work with young mothers, and sometimes also we get not only young mothers, even people who are already somebody comes and reason they will give the issue, there is a lot of crisis when you listen to these people. The rejection, first of all, coming for the young ones, it's from their parents and also from the one who is responsible for the pregnancy. So you find this person feels the only way to hide away or live away is it's only through people in marriage life. Sometimes a person might tell you it's not easy in the family, but to be happy from another person. So you find if this crisis is not addressed very well, there is that hype of this person committing this abortion without thinking of the consequences. Another thing that we have also I have come to notice is also the issue of poverty, especially in the areas we serve, Korogocho, Kariobangi, Dare, Huruma, sometimes even from Dandora. Some will come and if you go for home visits, because from the home visits you are really able to see their experience and their challenges. It is really there is a very high possibility of this person to think of abortion being the solution, because they ask, I'm not even able to feed myself, even the kid that I have. For the teen mothers, maybe for them it's also because when they got this pregnancy, it was not because of the poverty they were having at their home, lack of school fees, sometimes the food. So you find some of the situations are making the person to think of very fast solutions. And another one is ignorance. A person is not aware of the consequences that can come with this abortion. You find that after explaining to the client, they're able to come to terms, and most of them prefer keeping this pregnancy. And still the stigma, especially for the young mothers. A person was at school very young, 14, 13, and 15. Now, after getting this pregnancy, a person of grade 6, it's not easy. Some of them even they don't understand they are pregnant. You have to tell them, take care. You are carrying somebody inside there. So some of them, when they realize that they are pregnant, they are afraid of, because they have lost a lot of their friends, a lot of friends. Also, the parents, maybe they don't understand them. Yeah, so those are some of the issues that I think manifest to these people. Feeling wanting to abort.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Georgina, for that. Very insightful. I hope members who are on board are learning something. Just keep the chats going so that I'm informed that you're learning, so that we are not just communicating between the panelists and moderators. Yeah, thank you for the feedback, Georgina. Still on abortion, now this is a legal issue. And on the panel, I know we have 2 lawyers. Though I'll go for Linda on this. What are the current laws and policies regarding abortion in Kenya? And how do they impact the dignity of human life? Georgina, please. Then Kaketo will also respond to the same question.
Thank you.
Not Georgina, sorry. Linda. I'm talking to Linda and Kakito. What are the current laws and policies regarding abortion? That is the first facet of the current policies and laws regarding abortion. And the second facet of the question is, how does this impact the dignity of human life?
I'll ask Mr. Kakito to answer the first bit, because it's very conversant with the policies. Then I can see how it works.
What the hierarchy of laws is. Lawyers usually start out with the constitution, and then they mention the statutes, and then subsequently they would make some reference to policy, etc. But the constitution of Kenya, in article, this is for our legally on the person has the right to life, and then the life of a person begins at conception, and that life shall not be arbitrarily deprived unless as permitted by the constitution or any other written law. And then in Article 26(4), it expressly says abortion is not permitted unless, in the opinion of a trained health professional, the life or health of the mother is in danger. And that Article 26(4) is the pro-life headache, because we pro-lifers would wish that we interpret it in the pro-life sense. The pushers of abortion usually and have often interpreted it in the anti-life sense, capitalizing on the exceptions. And for sure, Article 26(4) served the purpose of opening the gates of abortion on demand by lowering the caliber of the person who forms the opinion that the abortion should take place, and increasing the grounds upon which the opinion could be formed. How did they lower the caliber? When you follow the history of that provision, for a long time, bombers had registered medical practitioner. The WACO draft had a registered medical practitioner. But when the document landed in the hands of committee of experts, they removed registered medical practitioner who takes the Hippocratic Oath and inserted trained health professional. That means anyone who is trained health-wise would form the said opinion. And the provision increases the grounds upon which the opinion could be formed by not limiting it to the life exception, by including the health exception. Every time you include the health exception to abortion, you are essentially saying anything goes, okay? Because the definition of health by WHO is a very broad definition. It is not, it's a state of well-being, not the absence of infirmity. You could be unwell economically, you could be unwell socially, you could be unwell, etc. So that's why when Georgina was speaking, you would hear that some people were unwell economically, unwell socially, and they seem to choose abortion as the solution. So that's the basis upon which I would say that Article 26(4) reduced the caliber of whoever can form the opinion, but increased the grounds upon which the said opinion could be formed. But then we have Article 43 of the Constitution, which says that everyone has a right to the highest attainable standard of health, including reproductive health. Now, our adversaries, the pro-abortion fellows, the pro-death fellows, are usually riding on the idea of reproductive health to push their agenda. So everything abortion, everything sexualization of children, everything anti-family finds its way into reproductive health. But when you talk about the right to the highest attainable standard of health, you realize then that it cannot be a trained health professional to form the opinion that, that an abortion should be carried out. So you then realize that read seriously, the right to the highest attainable standard of healthcare would require that we actually have a registered medical practitioner forming the opinion, and the second opinion is also possible. That's about the Constitution. I will leave it there. We then have the Penal Code. Now, the Penal Code has an offense of murder, but it also has miscarriage. And we had a challenge in 2004, and this relates to the history of Article 26(2), when street kids found babies aborted in Nairobi River, and then they call the police. Police checks the garbage, finds that actually there are receipts and invoices in the same garbage bag. So they trace the garbage to its source, which was on Afia House at Dr. Nyamu's clinic. So Dr. Nyamu is arrested with two other nurses, and they're charged with the murder of person 1, person 2, person 3. I think they went on up to 7. And for some reason, section 204 of the Penal Code says that a child becomes an infant becomes a person capable of being killed if they are proceeded in a living state outside the womb of the mother. So then this guy got to be acquitted because under the law, at least limiting it to the Penal Code, they had killed what is incapable of being killed. Now, remember, the judge involved was Lady Justice Rawal. And Lady Justice Rawal was also a champion for women's rights, okay? So it made sense for her to overlook the criminal procedure laws that would have required her to convict and acquit someone who is brought to court on grounds of murder, even though actually they had procured abortions. The Criminal Procedure Code provides that even if someone has been brought to court, prosecuted for sections 159, 158 of the Penal Code, and these are sections relating to miscarriage, procuring a miscarriage, giving a woman a drug that can cause a miscarriage, etc. That if someone is brought to court for murder, but it turns out that what they committed was in these provisions relating to procuring a miscarriage, then the court has a duty to convict them of that offense, even though they had not been brought to court for that offense. So anyway, Lady Justice Rawal just chose to ignore that and acquitted Dr. Nyamo, one of the most stubborn medical doctors on this question. I have a feeling the guy is making money off abortions and the entire agencies that are promoting this. So that would be the Criminal Procedure Code, the Penal Code, and the Constitution. We then could move to the policy. We have the Reproductive Health Policy. And the Reproductive Health Policy, I would say, is a policy that had an opportunity to be influenced by both the pro-abortion guys and the pro-life individuals. So KCPF was involved and several other groups. And for some reason, in the dialogue over this policy document, it turned out that the pro-life voice was also the voice of reason. So much so that even those opposed to our viewpoint yielded, and the document turned out very pro-life. So the policy, the reproductive health policy, while it would be looked at as the train or the tool for the pro-abortion agenda, the reproductive health policy of Kenya is very pro-life. And the evidence that it is pro-life is that the pro-abortion fellows who usually fund reproductive health programs in the Ministry of Health have decided that they won't promote that policy, have decided they won't implement it just because of its pro-life language. It is protecting children. It is making sure that even if an abortion is to be carried out, an entire protocol has to be followed to be sure that actually the condition that the woman is in is endangering her life and her health. And the opinion has to be documented so that it can be checked on afterwards to verify whether actually the decision that was taken was based on sound medical practice. I've taken a long time, but I would say those are the key laws and policies that we would look at if we are thinking about protection of life in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was in-depth. And even in addressing the various laws and policies, you've touched on the impact on pro-life. But maybe back to Linda, you can just say maybe whatever Mr. Kaketo has not covered on the impact of these laws and policies on our pro-life agenda. To you, Madam Linda.
Being my senior, summarize it this way: it's the gaps. It's the gaps, the gaps in, you know, the gaps in things like Mr. Kido said, a trained health professional, and that is for me the major issue that we face. As you're aware, I am aborted, and I ask my now as an advocate, will I be acquitted? Or will I be found to have aborted? And the truth of the matter is I will be acquitted, simply because of the gaps, okay? So then it then takes us down to of our legislation, from the Constitution all the way to the policies that have been mentioned, and us being very active in terms of pushing the right policies in place, because these gaps though abortion is illegal and is not permitted as per the Constitution, but the gaps make it as good as legal in this country.
Okay, thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. I think that answers the question, especially for the non-lawyers. The gaps in the law that are being exploited. Mr. Nyingi has a comment. Please go ahead.
To make a comment on a few things. So, system and what the law says about this topic. It's not the beginning of what is right and wrong. Something being legal doesn't make it okay, right? So we have to start from the fundamentals. What are the objective values that we have to hold our society by? And one of those things is the human dignity. Okay? That every human person, intrinsic and inviolable dignity, right? So you have a value as a human being that can't be taken away from you, and you didn't earn it, and everyone has the same amount, right? What I said in my first comment. And our laws should articulate that truth, okay? And if there's anywhere where the law doesn't cater for certain things or goes against those things, then it's our job to correct the law, like what my fellow speakers talked about, the gaps. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear to our audience that the law doesn't tell us what is right and wrong. It is our job to make the law, to have the law in line with what is correct.
Yes, great.
Thank you, Nyingi. I see you're coming from a point of ethics and morality, knowing that something might be legal but not right, which as Christian professionals, I think that is our point of view. I've seen Martha and Bore has raised her hand. Please go ahead.
Okay, apologies, I did on where I am.
It's okay,
but
it's okay.
From the space where I'm in the same space with Georgina of rescue and refuge, people in crisis. One thing when you're talking about the law, if you are post-abortive or if procuring abortion, you are not liable by law. It's a person who, the person who aids you to do it that is liable. So that makes people scared to actually come in when they become victims of abortion. And all because you can be influenced by your parents, you can be influenced by many people to have an abortion. So just know that when you're talking to these ladies who are in crisis, they've had an abortion, because somebody who's had an abortion is more likely to have another abortion. The first one is the most hardest. I'm talking from a I'm also post-abortive multiple times. And they get scared because they think that if I talk about it, I'll be prosecuted. The old constitution is to do that. But now we tell them, because we want to turn them into advocates to tell people that don't abort. So one thing we should know that you're not liable for those things right now in this constitution, but the people who encouraged you to do it are liable. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you for that. Admin, please ensure that we have the right people in the meeting to avoid unnecessary distractions. Okay, but streaming both our panelists and everyone who is on board. Martha, you can put down your hand. Thank you. So we've been addressing the question of abortion. And now I think we need to move on to something else. We highlighted 3 major threats which will be tackling today. It was abortion, violence, and access to healthcare as threats to life. And now this violence issue, I want to address the question to Mr. Nyingi. We've seen recently there's been a lot of murder, especially in love triangles matters, where we saw things like Airbnbs being trending on social media because of the death caused through violence. So the question is, being pro-lifers, how can we advocate? How can we have advocacy efforts to prevent violence and promote a culture of respect for human life in Kenyan communities? How can we now promote advocacy for life through prevention of violence, so as to promote a culture of human life in Kenya? Now, answering in the context of the recent murders orchestrated through love triangles. Mr. Nyingi, please go ahead.
Okay, an interesting question. I think the first place that we should address when it comes to any problem is why. Why did it happen? What caused it? What's the underlying reason for these things? This is with every situation, even what we were talking about previously with abortion. So why, the question that we keep hearing is, why are these ladies going for these services? Where are the men in these stories? What's going on? So even as it comes to the murders, then the question is, what is it that is causing these? Yeah, and as we're asking these questions, we need to have the heart that wants to answer, that wants to do something about it, that wants to go from a state of there's a problem. And what we find nowadays is many people are getting into this discussion with them wanting to argue, right? Rather than arguing for the sake of arguing, then what is it that we need to see as the foundational problem? They want to date. So we're seeing that as an issue. That's very difficult to decide who to go out with. Okay, the criteria is WAP. Okay, so that's one thing. I think we need to reevaluate what it is that we want when we're looking for mates, because we end up with decisions that put us in a space of harm, right? Now, that's not to say that ladies it's their fault and they're the ones who they put themselves in that situation. No, regardless of what situation a lady is in, she shouldn't be harmed, right? So if she's walking around at night, that's no reason for her to be abused or harmed in any way, right? So there's the part that the men have to do, there's a part that the ladies have to do. And I think the best solution to this kind of situation is for men to sit down together and ask themselves, what can we do about this situation? These killings are happening and there's serious, there's serious consequences. These are people's daughters, these are people's sisters that are getting hurt. And it's not right. What can we do about it as men? And the ladies sit together and ask themselves the same question. And together, that way, at least we can find a solution without at the very core of it is each of us need to figure out how to make proper decisions, right? How do you look at your neighbor and see them with the dignity that they have and treat them with the respect they deserve, right? So do you see the value of another human being, and do you treat them in that way? You treat them as the person who deserves respect, or do you treat them as a tool to be used? Yeah, something to satisfy something within, right? Whether that is a sexual urge, whether it's a financial urge, how do you view your neighbor? right? Do you see the dignity within them? So I think once we start from that point and build on it, then and I think that would be the best approach to the situation that we have.
Wow. Thank you for that. I think from your answer, the primary question is, why is this happening? Yeah, because every time you are fighting, there's been maybe demonstrations, stop femicide and such, but the question we're failing to ask ourselves is, why is this happening? And one of the things you've said is that if we have, or we appreciate the dignity of life, such things will not be happening. Treating people as human and not as tools. Maybe just a follow-up on the same, now addressed to the dinner, being a social worker. And personally, have some little experience here in Nairobi, whereby gender-based violence is just a common theme. Talking to men around the area, they'll be very surprised hearing that maybe you've not beaten up your wife. That's very common. Beating up a wife is a form of discipline. But now, for us as pro-lifers and people who are treating others with dignity, Georgina, why do you think this is happening, gender-based violence, especially in informal settings?
Thank you. For this, as you have said, in fact it's a norm here, especially in Korokocho. I think it's normal for them to be beaten, and the reason it's because that most of these people, especially in that area, you find that they're not aware about their rights. Unless you tell a person you are suffering where you are, they are not aware. For them, they think it's normal. So you find lack of awareness here, and also people knowing their rights. It's sometimes it's a challenge, because also for these people, especially the women and the men who are treating their men, the husbands who are treating their wives this way. Sometimes you find that also they are not sober as they beat them, and after they come back to their soberness, that is the time maybe you find them giving them hope and saying that I will not repeat it again. So the woman can give them a second chance. So they continue to suffer. Some of them, they continue to suffer in silence. So what we are trying to do is also to try to create awareness to both, not only men, because also some of the men also are becoming victims. They are being also beaten, and it's creating awareness for them to understand their rights, that in case something like this happen, it's very important to report. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Georgina. I think that answers it. Now, Mr. Kakito, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yes, I needed to add something to what Nyingi raised and Georgina. There is a study that has sparked my interest a few days ago. In fact, I wrote an article for the Daily Nation, and they chose not to publish it, and they did not even reverse to me. There is a study that connects intimate partner violence to increased contraceptive use. Okay, in the sense that the study was observing women who had been in violent relationships, and for some reason, as many as 60%, I think close to 65%, who reported being on contraception also reported having suffered violent intimate partner violence. And to those who reported no use of contraception, they also didn't report intimate partner violence. And for me, it sparked me a little bit to reflect and find out, wait a minute, could it be that we have pumped contraception into our system so much, meaning we've given contraception and made it available so much that we no longer know when our responses to provocation are influenced by the hormonal changes also. Because if you ask any married man, they will tell you that in the first 3 months of pregnancy, mama is usually very irritable. You literally have to choose what you say and how you say it so that you don't cause an unnecessary brawl. So I'm thinking, if it is the case that most of our contraceptives are actually progesterone, the same kind of hormone that is at peak in the first 3 months of pregnancy, could it be, and I'm just saying, could it be that there's a way in which when our sisters, our mothers, our aunties are on contraception, that they become extra irritable? Could it be? I'm just asking. And the men who have lost any sort of what do I call it? Manhood, in the sense that the quality of men has dropped badly. We men have failed so badly that we can no longer even read our partners well. We can no longer read our wives well. And we just say, okay, I give up on the relationship, or let me show her what I've got within my fist. So I recommend to some extent that we need to rule out the possibility that contraception, especially hormonal contraception, could be a risk factor in intimate partner violence. So that's what I needed to say, that one of the measurable causes could be that, but we just need to establish whether it is the case or not. And this would mean we would have to amend the Form 3A, the form that we present at the police station in the case of violence that people would have suffered, or make sure that as soon as a victim of intimate partner violence has presented at the hospital, then the question is asked whether or not that person is on contraception, if the woman involved is on contraception. In that way, we can then either affirm or rule out that possibility. Thanks a lot.
Wow, that's a very interesting point of view. I've seen in the chats, one of the people is asking how we can access that article. Maybe you can share it with us. So
I posted I posted a Facebook link. It
Okay,
has, I clicked it myself on Facebook because the Nation didn't publish it.
Okay. We are sorry that your work of research was not published. Yeah, but we will have a look at it and give our comments too. Thank you. I think we've covered on violence. There's still a question on the legal perspective. Back to Mr. Kakito, just in 2 minutes now.
Beg your pardon? I missed the question.
Let me read the question. What are the legal frameworks that exist to address the various forms of violence in Kenya, and how effective are they in protecting the dignity of human life and the right? Yeah. What are the legal frameworks?
Again, they've kept me within the legal frameworks, and Nyingi had said we must start off with human dignity. I will start off there, okay? There's something called the hierarchy of laws provided by a famous Christian scholar called Thomas Aquinas. And Aquinas, in giving us this hierarchy of laws, indicated that the highest form of law is eternal law. The second highest is divine law. The third highest is natural law. And the lowest is what he called human or man-made law. In fact, he indicated that if a man-made law is inconsistent with divine, eternal, and natural law, it is no law at all. At best, it is unjust. And in fact, you commit no sin when you disobey an unjust law in those circumstances. So yes, because we are created in the image and likeness of God, we are set in a standard that is inviolable, that should not be manipulated, that is dignified. Okay, so that becomes the measure. But our human-made law is also measured against this hierarchy. So we have the Sexual Offences Act that was promoted at the time by the then legislator, now Supreme Court Justice Njoki Ndung'u. It does a good job in defining sexual offenses and the penalties there too. We have the penal code as usual, preventing assault and punishing assault and battery. And the police has been quite effective in responding to these complaints. The only challenge is the reporting process. The reporting process when it comes to the nature of the offense involved. Just as Georgina indicated, the victims of the offenses are not very proactive in reporting when it gets to that kind of sexual offenses. And there is a tendency to be the happy slave. In my own tradition, for example, they used to say that women hold the view that if he doesn't beat you, he doesn't love you. Okay? That it is only a man who loves you that actually would beat you up. Now you can imagine that kind of skewed approach to human life and to the understanding of violence. And then we have the violence against men that also goes unreported, mainly because, again, of the cultural considerations. Men are supposed to be tough, men can never be beaten, etc. Okay. So the legal framework that we have, in my estimation, serves the purpose of dealing with the violence. Almost every offense relating to violating the integrity of the human person and offenses have been, penalties have been prescribed. It is the enforcement that gets to be challenged in part by the level of response by the enforcers and the readiness of the victims to report the violence. Usually people only report when they have been injured or they've reported to a medical facility and they have a wound and the medical police. Yeah, so that's what I would say in terms of the framework and the effectiveness. Thank you.
Thank you. From that, I think what I'll just pick is the laws and policies we have serve the purpose. Therefore, the non-lawyers in the house fail at home. It serves the purpose. That's what we've taken. Thank you, Kakito, for that. We are almost wrapping up. Now onto the last thing, it is access to healthcare. And I want to ask this to Georgina. Now, coming from an informal setting like myself, how does this impact, such as maybe poverty? How does poverty and the geographical location impact access to healthcare? And what can we do about this?
Thank you. I will begin with the issue and then how we can go about it. First of all, everybody deserves the right quality of health. Unfortunately, the experience I have gotten is that we have the facilities. We can't complain that we don't have the facilities, especially in this area of Korokocho, Kariobangi, Huruma, Mathare. The only problem that you experience is that the poverty, again, it takes over sometimes because somebody might be sick and what they earn, it's even below because they depend on going to wash clothes for somebody. And these people, sometimes they pay them very little amount of money, 200, and it's very little, and sometimes they will not get. So that is what they depend on, paying the rent, doing everything in that household. So you find that when it comes to these issues of health, somebody prefers, even if a kid is sick, and that's the challenge we are also experiencing with our young mothers for their babies. The kid is very sick. So what they do, they take them to those facilities. Unfortunately, in those facilities, we have the doctors sometimes, and if the doctor is there, sometimes you don't have the medicine. So you're sent to buy the medicine out, which is also very expensive for this person. So what they prefer, they just go and they wait for maybe what will happen to happen. So these are some of the challenges you find. And also sometimes the issue to do with maybe a person can also be having an issue or diagnosed with something that need a need further treatments, whereby maybe you can be asked to go to look for another access, maybe to Mama Lucy, Kenyatta Hospital. So the person, it's a journey. They have to think of the transport, they have to think of the queue they get there, and also remember every day they depend on hand to mouth. So a person, some of them, they prefer just living in that state, not because it's their wish, but it's because of maybe the circumstances they're experiencing. And also, I'm surprised that also here we have even the hospital, Margaret, the hospital of Margaret Kenyatta, where it was set for the people of this area, but unfortunately, it is not treating the people from this area because they can't afford. So these are some of the challenges you get also when it comes to accessing this. So what we can do, it's maybe the government and also with the people trying to help the people in the ground. We try also to raise their voices to the people in charge to help also as they bring this access. Are they affordable for everybody? And especially if we come to the issue of the slum area, informal settlements, is it affordable for these people? Are there some charges that can be given so that it can be affordable to all, not to favor some, because that's also where we take on the dignity. So we are denying some of them their dignity. There is this issues of NHIF, which we are kept on told it's there. Unfortunately, telling a person to pay 300 is not easy for a person. Even getting food, it's a problem. So also they need to check on that. We have now the universal health cover, which is going soon to be implemented. So I think we need also to help the government as they implement some of the issues. They also need to consider the people from these areas because but it's not favoring, it's not helping. And that's where also we are not able to, we are not respecting the dignity of these people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Georgina. What I gathered from your submission is that poverty is a serious impediment to access to healthcare, and what we can do is ask serikali kusaidia. Yeah, and maybe in our own capacities, help where we can. Next question is to Madam Linda. Maybe this is now a personal question. Maybe you can share with us your experience navigating the healthcare system in Kenya, particularly in accessing reproductive healthcare services, and how this impacted on your sense of dignity. Please go ahead.
Well, yes. How many minutes?
In 3 minutes. It's a
Sure.
personal experience.
Yes, yes. To be honest, it was quite easy to navigate the healthcare system. First abortion, that was in 2005. I went to a doctor, I was still very young, and I remember the initial doctor told me, no, you can keep the baby. I think I was 18 or so. You can keep the child. But I was not keen on doing it at the time because of course, the false things we think in our head. Oh, my parents, what will they say? They've sent a child to campus, and now here she is about to come back with a baby instead of a degree. But the doctor who was telling me not to do it said one line, just one line, and I picked on that line. And he was saying, I see ladies going to marriage stops to do these abortions, and I keep telling them not to do it. And you see, he was telling me as a deterrent not to go. But for someone who had never heard of the word marriage stops, or that there's a place that people can do abortion, I picked the name. And so I picked that there's a place called marriage stops. And I started walking around the streets of Eldoret looking for marriage stops until I found it. Those days there was no Google. So, or rather, we didn't have smartphones. And so I found it, and I asked, is this possible? They said yes. But what I noticed at the time, I was young, but I noticed it still at the time, was that I was committing an abortion, yes. But what they wrote in that registration slip or whatever it is, so I ignored it. Then, like Martha said, once you've had an abortion, it's just the chances, if you don't heal, the chances of you having more, is just opened up. The next time it was over 10 years later, the other abortion now. And this time I was a pro. I simply went to the marriage stops, asked for this, and now this chemical abortion, like you're being told, and so I was able to just access in terms of pills, and I just took it. But what was the worst thing is how easy it was. How I didn't struggle. You simply walk in, they give you a pill, tell you take this, and then tomorrow make sure you're free, and then you take it in the comfort of your home. And at that time, my heart had been so hardened, and I was so pro-choice. I actually believed that whole nonsense of babies until they come out. That by the time I was conducting the second abortion, I was watching Netflix, eating chicken while aborting. I was so hardened. So it's my experience, and what it did for my dignity was, I didn't know, but later I started going through serious depression. And by 2019, I was ready to take my life. And even at that time, I didn't know that the source of all of this was abortion that began in 2005. It took God to literally just, save me and unearth these things from 2005 and to tell me, Linda, this is where it began. And it began like this because there was a separation between you and I. And, the devil just put lies in your head that life begins after birth, or that you have power as a woman to determine whether you give life or not. And you look at Jeremiah, we were told, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. I know that just sparked my head. I was like, wait a minute. That means life began even before I was in the womb. And here we are arguing about wombs and whether, life begins after birth or, and so, but it took Jesus to heal me. It took Jesus to heal me. It's a long story, I have 3 minutes. But after the healing process, when I understood now the truth, and here's the truth that people don't tell you or people don't speak about. It is that abortion kills both the mother and the child. Even if you don't die physically, you die. It took Jesus to revive me back to life. So you actually die. And people need to start telling that to the mothers, that you might have the safest, quote unquote, safest abortion. There's nothing like that. But you might have the safest abortion in your head in terms of medical, but 2 people die, both you and the child. And I think it's important that people understand this. And so without the reviving power of Jesus, I'd have died over 10 years, mentally, psychologically. And then 2019, the devil was ready to take me now, physically. And so that is my journey.
Wow. I've even shed a tear. Wow, that's so emotional. Thank you for being open to share with us your story. I think from that story, all of us are being impacted, knowing that it is a journey, and without the hand of God, you cannot be delivered from such a tragedy. Mr. Kaketo's raised a hand, but before you speak, if you have any questions, that was the last question. I think it is good we end it on that note. So if you have any question, I'll be taking questions. Please raise your hand to avoid disorder in maybe asking our questions. So raise your hand, I'll be picking so that we ask our questions. Mr. Kaketo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Amadilo, and thank you to Linda for sharing that story. I'm telling you, it makes all the difference when a woman and a lawyer is saying it, because I don't know if you know how powerful you are, Linda, in that sense, in terms of diffusing the lies that have been told to our sisters and our daughters. Now, on the question of the right to access to healthcare, there's usually the 2 components of access. It is usually physical access and economic access. Physical access in the sense that health facilities that are fully equipped should be accessible within the jurisdictions of the state. Now, we still have places in the country where people have to walk distances. Sometimes it is hazardous distances. But for some reason, when it gets to these reproductive health services, we don't have a problem of access. I can put my foot down on that. It seems that the products associated are fully available in the country. We have community health promoters in all corners of the country doing one job, looking out for which girl is in puberty so that they may take them to receive a jadele or to receive whatever. So in my estimation, there seems to be both economic and physical access to the reproductive health services that are inclined towards attack on human life or undermining human life. One time I was in Kibera and I had to buy some medicine, but I tried to avoid jam and I went through Kibera. So I chose to buy the medicine in a pharmacy, a drug shop, so to say, in Kibera. And goodness, at the front of the kiosk. It is a 2 meter by 2 meter drug shop of sorts. We had an entire shelf full of P2 at the front of the pharmacy. I'm not sure that these fellows in the pharmacy are prescribers of drugs. I'm not sure they are medical doctors. I don't know what opinion they form, but there's so much of an availability of these abortion tabs that you really wonder where the priority is in terms of life-saving drugs in the real sense of the word. So I needed to make that point that yes, we have a challenge of access, especially physical access and economic access, as Georgina indicated. But when it gets to these medications and hormones and abortion services, these seem to be very available to our people. On the question of economic access for health generally, maybe it's the time we need to really push for a universal income. Just like there's pushing for universal health coverage, we cannot push for universal health coverage if we don't push for a universal income. There are social justice groups that are pushing that direction also to make sure that everyone earns, therefore everyone can contribute to healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kakito. I've seen Nyingi. Please go ahead.
Healing, so we can move towards the whole community healing. On the same where the people in charge have also gone through some of the pain that we've heard of today, and because of that, then they have to fight to maintain their I would not sanity, but rather they have to fight to be correct. Okay, they have to continue fighting for what they're fighting for, not because they feel it's right. You find several people within the policy space don't believe that abortion is right, but they will continue fighting for it because one is economical reasons. Number two, there's something in their history that they need to assure themselves that they made the right choice, right? So there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. I think that's my comment on that. Now, when it comes to the policy, when it comes to healthcare, then in every single aspect of life that has to do with a human being, we have to ask ourselves, have we looked at this person in their totality, in their holistic nature as a human being? Or have we just pulled one side of them and focused on that? Right? So when you talk about reproductive health, if we separate reproductive health from humanity, then what we have is we have situations where things like contraceptives are a solution to things. But if you were to think about a healthy, functioning reproductive system, then you should be fertile, right? So the encouragement of infertility in itself isn't healthcare. Yeah, it's flawed, it's off. So we need to look at, have we looked at this person in their holistic nature? When we see the hormones, as Mr. Kaketo was talking about, what do they affect? They affect more than just the reproductive system. They affect the way this person thinks about life. We've had situations of ladies who've been on hormonal contraceptives for an extended period of time. They get married, and when they're ready to have a child and get off the contraceptives, they're like, how did I make this decision? How this isn't the person I would have. Yeah. So that kind of situation where someone's life choices are altered so much, but we don't pay attention to that and call it healthcare, I think that we need to be very careful on what we accept as healthcare. Yeah. So ensure that even those who are in poverty are extremely vulnerable. So many of these things are pushed into poverty-stricken areas in the name of healthcare, but these people aren't looking at you as a human being in your totality. They're looking that it's a project, okay? So even in our desperation in the different areas that we need healthcare to be accessible, we need to be very firm in filtering out what is good and what is wrong for our society, and ask the question, does this view me as a human person, or does it view me as a problem, or as only a part of me? Right.
Okay, thank you, Nyingi. I've seen Naomi, you've raised your hand. Please go ahead. We are wrapping up.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd really like to appreciate the insights that I have got from here. My name is Naomi, and I direct my question to Linda. I think the last speaker okay, yeah. Constitution of Kenya, Article 26. There's a current move by the KCPA under the Family and Protection, under the Family Committee. They want to come up with an amendment to the Constitution, and they're saying that they'd like to add the word medical opinion before in Article 26 form. So I'm thinking out loud. What do you think that there'll be a difference if we add the word medical opinion of a trained health professional? And number two, when we talk about health of a mother, HWO defines health to mean state of complete physical, mental, and social. So that part of mental, what if one argues that this pregnancy will it causes stress, and when we talk of mental, you can see it can only be perceived. So what do you think about that phrase? Thank you.
Okay. So just like Advocate Kakito had mentioned, the inclusion of the word medical in the opinion of in the medical opinion of a trained health professional, well, it can help, but like you said, according to the WHO definition of health and well-being, then the medical opinion can be one that says, let's give my example. A doctor can easily say, oh, this pregnancy is stressing her. She's young, she's not ready, her mind is not in the right place to have a child, and therefore the abortion would be justified. Are you understanding the mindset? And so, for me, my opinion is this: abortion, there's no circumstance where abortion should be justified. Period. There's no, medical trained in the opinion of a medical trained professional, not at all. Because this medical trained professional's opinion, where is it coming from? So because we cannot judge the intents of man, that trained professional is still a human being, then it's just another loophole that is about to come, because psychologists are also medical trained professionals. And they will tell you, maybe I would have said, in fact, exams are coming. I remember it was about December right there. Exams are coming, and I'm very distressed. My parents are strict. I'll be kicked out of the house, blah, 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 blah. And they would have said, oh, this one, she can even commit suicide. Like what is happening, what they keep pushing around in the States right now. So, no, I don't think changing it helps, but it is way better than a trained health professional for me, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
Something there.
Yeah, if I could say something there, the safest thing to do is to return it to a registered medical practitioner. You have to raise the caliber of whoever forms the opinion and reduce the grounds. You have to drop the health exception and keep it to life. So once the amendment is able to do that and it succeeds, we are good. If it remains opening health professional and it does not drop the health exception, we are still rolling in the mud. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hope, Nomi, you are answered. So I'll hear from...
Maybe I could also make a comment.
In 1 minute, please.
Yes, of course. So I think also when we look at the term abortion, then we need to understand what does the Constitution mean by that, right? So an issue we have is that it's not defined. Yeah, so if we were to define it in the English terms, then we would say abortion is the same as aborting a mission. It's bringing to an end, right? So if we were to abort a mission, then we bring a mission to an end. If we were to abort a pregnancy, then we bring it to an end. Okay, so a pregnancy can be aborted naturally, right? So when a woman gives birth, then that pregnancy has been brought to an end naturally, right? Now, if we're talking about abortion in that way, then the statement is okay, right? That pregnancy being brought to an end by a trained medical professional. However, if we're talking about the intentional killing of the unborn child, if that is what we'd consider success, that the child dies, then we're talking about two very different things, right? So I think there's a lot of clarity that needs to be given, and I think definition is also one of those things that might really help in that situation.
Okay, thank you, Nyingi. I hope Nomi is answered. Yeah, personally, I've been learning a lot from this discussion. I hope the rest of us are also learning that once we come out of this webinar, we'll feel like we've been equipped to go ahead and promote and protect life in our various spheres of influence. Now we'll hear from Georgina, your closing remarks, because you're wrapping it up. The rest of the panelists have talked. Maybe I'll hear from Georgina, closing remarks, and Linda, closing remarks. Please go ahead, Georgina.
Okay, my closing remarks will be that all of us, it's a call to promote and to protect this life. Despite the challenges, despite the challenges we encounter on the ground, we have a right. We have it's our duty. It's our duty to raise the voice and to speak for these who are not able to speak for themselves, and also to continue creating more awareness. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Georgina. Linda?
Yes, I join Georgina in that there's a lot of awareness that needs to happen. There's a lot of myths that need to be dealt with, and we need to create a scenario where science is removed, in a sense, from the human experience, because science lies. And if we can get more people to actually speak on the lie that science is peddling around abortion, then we are able to have many people question whether the source of the science and what the truth actually is. So let's create more forums where people can be able to express themselves and actually speak and say, this is my experience. Your science says this, but this is my experience. So how do you explain that? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Linda, for that. Yeah, we've been live on Facebook and YouTube. So after this, you can go check this out. Continue the discussion, even in our various areas. or spheres of influence so that we can have more impact in our endeavor of promotion and protection of life. Just a reminder that we'll have our life symposium on 20th of this month and our March for Life on 23rd of this month. So as you go on with your activities, please go mobilize people. We need to bring more people so that we proclaim our voice and promote life in Kenya. So I've seen we have Ann Kioko, our co-convener for Life Committee. Please give your remarks, then pray for us as we end this discussion. For all of you who have joined, my heartfelt thanks for joining, because this webinar will not have been a success without you. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope we'll see you again in our Life Symposium and March. Ann Kioko, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Bwana Madilo. Thank you so much. Our panelists and everybody that participated in today's event. It has really been quite insightful. I've listened to the stories from Linda, from Georgina, Bwana Kaketo, and Bwana Nyingi, and every panelist had a very nice, compelling story, and I hope that we are being convinced on why we need to March for Life come on 23rd of March, and also to participate in the entire of Life Week. Thank you so very much, and thank you, Bwana Madila, for the moderating very well. Very appreciated. And for everybody that asked questions, made comments, we appreciate so much. We look forward to having you in our next webinar. I'm sure to communicate